geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
But it's so funny because, you know, I saw the announcement the other day that it had been shifted off the schedule, and I was like, no.
They just keep taking things away from you.
And my son is going, Mom, it's okay.
This is not the end of the world.
He's like, you can still watch the original Candyman,
right.
Mom.
It's still there for you. It's still there. And you probably, you probably won't like the new one as much anyway. So the original is always there.
I mean, maybe I won't, but it looks really good.
You know what I was thinking? That it would be fun to do a Giallo episode.
You're going to make Jeff watch like Dario Argento or...
Well, there could be, Bird with Crystal
I don't even understand
ones.
the reference right now. So
Giallo is like extreme Italian horror. And
it doesn't have to be. It's like noir horror. In some cases, it is extreme.
I got to dig deep to find this? My library's not going to have
No.
Giallo. Isn't that
like the bird with the crystal plumage is a big one.
Or Suspiria,
Deep Red. Jennifer Connelly was in one. Phenomenal.
Don't make him watch Deep Red.
No.
All right, here. I got Phantasm on the schedule.
There's one with George Lazenby in it.
Oh, jeez.
So
you guys hash it out and you figure out what we're going to pair with.
Well, I mean, or we could watch... if we do Giallo episode, I would want to do like a Mario Bava, because it's like he's the grandfather, and then something.
It's too bad that Dawn of the Dead is a 5 bucket, because we could have paired that with.
Yeah, totally. And especially because I remember when I met George Romero, many years ago, and he was talking about at the time there were like lost cuts of Dawn of the Dead, and he said, he was like, Dario has one of them.
Yeah, I've got it actually. I've got that cut.
It's like the Dario, the Dario Argento reel, like that was in his closet,
There's more Goblin to it. He does use footage that's not in any other version, so it is unique.
Yeah.
I've got that box set that's got like 4 different versions of it.
Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things under discussion when George Romero was talking about Dawn of the Dead, was, that there were so many cuts, and the cuts had sort of like disappeared with the 4 winds, like things had like just sort of gone out into the world, and he was like calling people and trying to hunt things down because he wanted to gather up all the various versions of Dawn of the Dead.
And it's not on Blu-ray at the moment, which is crazy.
Yeah.
I've been trying to... I think that they're going to release a version that's remastered 4K in England, and that's on the schedule, but nothing in America.
Well, I got that Fright Night Blu-ray, which was a UK release, and it played fine on my American Blu-ray. So if they release it over there, you could try to get it, see if it plays. I mean,
right? Doesn't that consider like a region 3 or something?
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be a different region, but I think the region encoding is not the same on Blu-rays.
Anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's definitely still region encoding on the DVDs, but
I have a little bit of news. But are we in, or we want to get in? Do we want to say hi? Do we
even say hi anymore?
We should. We should at least acknowledge the people who are listening to us and thank them, and people who are actually sending us emails now.
Mm-hmm.
That we don't know, that are
I
not
know. That's the more important aspect.
That we don't actually solicit. Hey, can you just send in an email and make?
Yeah, thanks, Mom. You did your work,
inflated?
but we're you can let go of the bike now.
I actually would like
So-
to thank in particular the reader who sent us an email of himself holding up a copy of The Ghost Tree.
That's true.
That is the same listener
Yes.
that has
Oh,
requested that we do
Oh,
one, possibly all three of his own 5 bucket choices. So we've
interesting.
heard you, Anthony.
Yes.
We've heard you, and we do have a busy schedule coming up in October because it is a very important month for all of us in terms
I want to brand it right now, Halloween month.
mhm.
But
do
after
that.
October is over and we've gotten all this stuff out of our system, then we'll definitely revisit your requests. So just hang
Cool.
in there. Keep listening.
All right. Well, welcome everybody who is listening. Before we get into some news, I want to play a little word association with Christina. I am going to
Okay.
say a word, and you
Okay.
tell me the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Okay.
Oprah.
Oh, The Ghost Tree? I'm sorry, no, it's
That's
Alice.
three
I was gonna say-
words.
Yeah.
Can I say Uma?
No, yes, I was going to go right down to Oprah.
Sorry.
Uma, Oprah. No,
Yeah.
Alice.
Yeah, it was Alice, right?
Alice.
I know. It's like I have a new release out, so I'm thinking about my new release.
I know. I'm not here to talk about that. That's in the past. The past is dead. Oh, wait.
Yes, it was very cool. So Alice, a book from 5 years ago, made Oprah's list of the 34 scariest books of all time.
Amazing. All time.
Yeah, all time. With there's some heavy hitters on that list. The Exorcist is on that list, and The Haunting of Hill House. And
I think
Art of the
It
Deal,
I
is
saw
that on
on
there?
that list. Stephen King's It is on there.
yes, they said
Wow, that's some good company.
they limited themselves to 2 Stephen Kings. So
There you go. So you got an in. You got an in with that.
Nice.
but yeah,
Well,
it was
kudos. That is pretty cool.
it was very exciting. It's always exciting to see your book on a list with books that you respect, and The Exorcist is one of the books that has scared me the most in my lifetime. So just sort of
Did Pet
flattering. to see
Cemetery
it
make the list? Was that one
Mm,
of his? No, probably not, huh?
I don't think so. It was
Yeah,
it.
that was the one that made me.
something else.
I had to put that
I
one
only
down.
remember It. I don't think I got past it on that list. Once I saw yours and I saw a couple
You're like,
couple others.
we don't care about
Like, I
anybody.
don't care about the rest.
Let them get their own podcast and talk about it. So, anyways, I did want to, because I know that you, kind of shy away from that publicity stuff. You don't always toot your own horn. So, we're going to do it for you this week.
Thank you.
I thought that was very cool. So,
Can we consider that part of Oprah's book club? I think so. I think we
don't-
can make
I don't
that-
know.
Does she actually read these books, or does she have like a committee?
Probably for her book club she
Yeah.
does, but I don't know if she's reading for the lists and stuff.
So it's never. So that book itself has never made it to Oprah's book club.
Oh, if it did, I don't
No.
think we'd have Christina on this show, right?
That's it. That's the nail. She's like, you know what, guys? I've ridden this wave long enough. It's time to move on. Bigger and better things. All right. Well, after that, Jim, I know we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I couldn't find. I went back to our episodes and I couldn't find it. But you had mentioned that they had cast for She-Hulk.
Yeah, and I was wrong. Not that I was wrong. The information that I read was wrong.
Okay,
But,
I thought maybe
anything
I
that's
couldn't remember who you said it was, and I'm like, oh my god, we broke this like a month ago.
Allison Brie.
Yeah, that's not the fact.
Maybe it was a rumor.
Of course, as soon as I read the new rumor it's actually not a rumor, it's confirmed.
It is confirmed.
That Tatiana
Maslany.
Maslany, that's
Maslany.
it. So if you know her from Orphan Black, she's very good, and I'm very pleased that she's been cast.
Isn't she tiny though?
She is, but again, you're thinking that it's like Hulk and Mark Ruffalo.
No, I
It's probably
just don't
going to
know
be
how
a
you
CG
sustain a
character.
character like that. That's going to be completely CG. I don't want to see her just Hulk out every week like Lou Ferrigno. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you got to. I want to see her Hulk out every week.
I guess I'm just leaning.
But in
heavily
the
into
comics,
John
she
Byrne
was
run.
more. She was
In John
more
Burns' run.
She-Hulk.
There was a part where she never turned back.
She was barely human in the comics. Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I guess we'll see. Mark Ruffalo's already congratulated or welcomed her in the family, so because they are cousins.
And speaking of casting rumors, I've been seeing a lot starting, I think, yesterday morning, that Tom Hardy is going to be the next James Bond. And again, that is not confirmed, so I don't know if that's true or not. But it's been coming from a lot of different places, a lot of different sources.
Do you like?
I like Tom Hardy. I like Tom
Oh,
Hardy.
I like him too. I don't know if he's.
But I think for a character like that, the actor, just like Daniel Craig when he first took it, needs to be lesser known. Like, I don't think the name should outshine
Right.
the character. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Well, we have one other casting news, which is Ant-Man 3 has confirmed casting
Yes.
of Jonathan Majors, who we just saw in Defy Bloods.
And if you're watching Lovecraft Country,
Yep.
he is very good in that as well.
And of course, rumors are that he is going to be King the Conqueror, the bad guy, who is a time traveling bad guy. So we'll see.
Now, I saw more than one article about this refer to Kang as a big bad. So whether or not he's just going to play out in this movie or over
Or they're
the
just
course,
going to establish him.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's tied to the Avengers and the Fantastic Four for that matter, as a time traveling character. So he could kind of be in the background, a la Thanos for the first
Right.
couple movies leading into.
And if they're going to do a Secret
Makes
Wars,
sense.
if they ever go down that road, he's tied to that as well.
Yeah.
The original Secret Wars.
Yeah, there was actually a really great miniseries. I think it was called Avengers Forever. But you would have to be so steeped in Avengers lore to even know half the characters that show up in that book. But that was really good. So that's interesting. And then the other thing is, which tonight are the Emmys, which I'm not going to be watching. But some of the shows have already been given technical awards. And The Mandalorian has won a lot. I think it pretty much won for every category it was listed in.
Have you guys watched the preview yet?
No, I actually went to go watch it this
No.
morning because I'm on my computer and then I got sidetracked.
There's
I know,
nothing
I
given
will-
away that you don't already know. In fact, there's
It's-
less given away in the preview than you've probably read about.
I did have a discussion with somebody at work because I've seen some screen grabs and I saw the opening ship shot, which looks, production-wise, it looks like it's already stepped up, which is insane considering what they did in the first season. But one of the awards is the musical composition of Ludwig Göransson,
Mhm.
who we just spoke about last week with Tenet.
Yep.
So kudos to him.
Now, speaking of rumors, have you been seeing these the scuttlebutt about the behind-the-scenes drama in The Mandalorian? I don't know if this is true, and a lot of the articles I've read say take this with a grain of salt.
Baby Yoda's asking for more money.
No, that Pedro Pascal quit midway through season 2, and he is no
What's he
longer
doing
part
anyways? He was
of
just
the
doing the
Mandalorian
voice.
cast. I have no way of confirming this, so
Is he
but
just holding
it's
out for
something
more
that I've
money?
read.
Is he like one of these NFL running backs now? He's just going to hold
No,
out.
no. The
shoes
story
up at
goes.
camp.
The story goes that he was getting frustrated of wearing the helmet all the time. But you got to know that
You
coming
signed
into
on.
it.
You knew what you were getting in for when you signed on. Stop.
Exactly. I don't think
Plus,
it's true. I don't.
Not
think
only
it's-
that, it's dropping next month. So normally this stuff is already in the can.
Yeah.
They're probably in post-production right now.
Maybe not even post-production because it's October 30th.
Yeah.
Right? It's when it's supposed
Yeah.
to come out. So
I mean, most of that stuff is in camera anyways.
Should
if
be
you
done.
if you've ever watched the what is it, Disney Galleries on Disney Plus, this facility that Favreau set up is just insane. It really is the future of filmmaking. It's nuts. So anyways, so they won like I said, you name it, they won it. Visual effects, production design, sound mixing, cinematography, stunt coordination. Kudos.
Yes.
There we go.
yes. Well
And
deserved.
that is all the news I have, unless you have something to add to it.
no,
I-
just
my-
the fact that Candyman has been taken off the release schedule. In fact,
Oh,
that
that is- okay,
everything.
yeah. That's funny we talk about it, but I didn't put it in the news.
That everything that was like every major release that was supposed to be
Mhm.
on the schedule in October is now gone. There's nothing. There are no major releases coming out now in the theater in October.
No, and if rumors are true, Black Widow may go the same way come November. They might just say, you know what? Because again, tenant numbers.
But the unfortunate thing with
it's-
Black Widow is that moves everything back in terms of Marvel. That would move back.
It probably would work to their
Eternals.
benefit, though, in the long run. Just pretend 2020 didn't exist.
We're not getting any younger. I have.
Listen,
news.
listen. I know, indeed. Well, I guess we'll see. We'll find out as soon as we know. We'll let you folks know. There you go.
So today's show, we are dipping our toes into scary season with Antebellum. Now, Christina, I know that
Mhm.
you're very excited to see this.
I was very excited to see this. 'Cause I was-
This was the best.
I was-
You've been talking about this
Yeah.
for quite some
Yeah,
time.
well,
And
that's
we've been-
because it's because your girl's in it.
But
That's right.
also because because of circumstances, the trailer dropped for this a long time ago. So
Mhm.
it's been on our radar for quite some time.
And
Yes.
it was an
Thankfully.
intriguing trailer at that.
They
because
chose
they
to, yeah.
didn't really tell you much.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that because that's one of the strengths, I think. But they did not choose to push this off to 2021. Thankfully, it's been released VOD, so we were able to all see it.
Yep.
Did you watch it Friday night, the night that it came out?
No, we watched time after time on Friday.
Okay.
Yeah. I did think, I was very, very intrigued by the trailer initially. And yes, Janelle Monáe is in it. And
Ding. Every time you say your name, the
yeah,
bell goes
that's
off.
right. Just started.
She gets $1.
And the trailer really didn't reveal a lot, and it sort of seemed like in the trailer that there was going to be some kind of time traveling element.
Correct.
Yes,
to
hence
the
Which is
story.
why we compared it with Time After Time. And I still think that, whatever, we'll get into it.
But before we start, again, a caveat for our listeners. If you're the kind of person who does not want the plot spoiled, please pause the podcast, go watch Antebellum, and then come back and listen to our review. If you don't mind spoilers, keep going. We're going to spoil a lot
We are
here.
going to spoil. We always spoil. I'm going to tell you.
Although more people will have had the chance to have seen this than Tenet, I think.
Yes.
That is true.
Hopefully
Yeah.
you've seen it. If you're
not to segue too much, but I had a coworker who was like, you know what? I really want to see. I'm so jealous that you guys saw New Mutants. I'm going to say screw it, and I'm going to listen to the podcast, even though I haven't seen the movie yet. And then when he came back in over the weekend, he goes, I couldn't do it. He goes, I'm like 5 minutes into the show, and he goes, I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
So the film opens, actually the opening sequence, I think, is one of the strongest scenes in the movie.
It's really nice.
From a visual standpoint, this
Yes.
film has some really gorgeous visuals, has some other issues that I'll talk about later, but it has some really beautiful visuals. That first opening shot, it starts slowly. It moves from a sort of idyllic white family on a plantation, right, with a big mansion, and there's a little girl picking flowers. And then it sort of moves slowly over the ground of the plantation while this music is playing in the background, and you see Black women hanging sheets on a line, and then you start to see Confederate soldiers crossing the lawn, and then it starts to like shift. You pass a very strange shed where something is on fire. There's a lot of smoke coming out of it. And then it sort of moves past this line of cabins into like this scene of absolute terror, where Janelle Monáe's character, who doesn't have a name at this point, her character's name is Eden, is like, she looks like she's been beaten. She's been thrown on the back of a horse, and there's a Black woman and a Black man who are trying to run away, struggling to escape from Confederate soldiers. The woman is brutally murdered in front of her partner. So just from the get-go, definitely
makes you uneasy.
Yes.
It's a rough scene, and it's cringeworthy.
As it's supposed to be,
Yes,
I mean,
correct.
I think you should be disgusted. I think you should feel uncomfortable. I think you should.
I think that's exactly what their intention was. And like you said, it's all made to look like one continuous shot. And there are cheats, when they go behind the sheets or whatever. But you're right. It goes from that beautiful idyllic setting to this harsh reality.
And I think that the camera, the way that it plays close to the ground, you can almost feel the heat, the oppression coming off of the workers, of the sun. It's just puts you in that space, because nobody's been, in our lifetime has been on a Confederate plantation, but they've been out in the outdoors, and it's hot and you're sweating.
And you hear that, and you know what, like shortcuts to get you to that point. It's just the overriding noise of the cicadas. Tells you that it's sweltering heat. It's just, you just want to see some lady in her little, oh Lordy, I got the vapors.
And plus you've got that Dick Dastardly of a Confederate officer who is, just from his twirly mustache, that he is the bad guy. Or at least
this whole movie makes you embarrassed to be a white man, I hate to say.
And like I said, I was afraid every second when they were on the plantation for the slaves, as you should be.
As you should be.
You should be afraid for
Right.
them. You should
Yeah.
be afraid of what's going to happen to them, because
Mhm.
the abuse is so arbitrary.
And these Confederate soldiers are so unforgiving and
even the
inhuman.
ones that you think are sympathetic, I'll bring up Daniel right now, which, that scene turns on a dime and you're like, oh, you're just like, cringeworthy is all I'm going to say.
But there's a few things where, when you're watching it, it's like the first 40 minutes of the film take place on this plantation.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few things where you're kind of going, that doesn't quite fit. Doesn't seem quite right. Obviously, in the actual antebellum period, slaves were not educated, but every slave that spoke was well-spoken. So I was like, okay.
Right, creative license, or is that...
Right.
Well, the thing is that we knew going into this that there was a time travel element. So you're waiting for that shoe to drop.
Yeah,
like,
so
okay, I know that they're not in this, that they're not from this time period.
So there's a couple other things. There's a scene where the general comes back to the camp and he's carrying a Union jacket, and he talks about their glorious victory at Milliken's. And since they're in Louisiana, I can only assume that they're talking about Milliken's Bend, which took place during the siege of Vicksburg, which was actually a Union victory. And just fun historical fact, was one of the first battles in which freed slaves fought significantly. They were commended, actually, for their bravery in battle. So I was kind of like, that's weird. Like, Milliken's was a Union victory. Why is he talking about a Confederate victory? So, like, there's a few little things that sort of stick in your craw. And
early on
where you're like, this doesn't
well, like Jim said,
fit.
Going in, or at least you assume, just based on, if you just read the description on the Prime page, that there's more going on than what you're seeing up front.
You're waiting 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, when are they going to bring in the modern day aspect of the story?
How did
Because
they get there?
It's coming. It's in the trailer. Because as Christina's saying, you're so uncomfortable and you're so frightened for the slaves that I think that this is how this movie succeeds as a horror movie, is that you're made uncomfortable by this. And it's all too real, the situation that they're in, considering current events now and a certain percentage of the population. And that plays into it as well. But it's almost a relief when that 40 minutes is through and you see her as she should be in modern times, and what the character of Veronica is and what she does. And you're in a safe place, at least for a little while.
This is, I think, where there's a huge weakness in the movie, and it's actually in the second act. The second act feels really weird tonally, especially when contrasted against the first 40 minutes. It's sort of like weirdly meandering. Like, they're in the restaurant for a long time.
And that's,
there's just a lot of stuff, I think, that doesn't quite come together in this movie, and it's primarily because of the second act. And I also think they didn't play up enough of the sort of creepy elements in the second act, which they could have done. You
get the little girl in the elevator. And
I thought that was really creepy, because I thought the whole
but it didn't really
computer chat with Jenna Malone.
This is
the same woman, right?
Yes.
And so is she in some kind of time warp? Is she mastered, time and space? Is she going to suck her into a time warp? And then when the girl is in the elevator, you're thinking, okay, she's entered the time warp now. But then it throws you for a loop when she goes out to the restaurant. And the fact, and this was a complete red herring, I will admit, but it was creepy to me, when Jenna Malone gets into her hotel room, she's leaving her hair as if she's a witch, that this is how she's going to suck her back into the antebellum period. But it's a red herring. It's not really what you think. She's just weird, I guess. And that's why
And by the way, Jenna Malone, I think, is always does such a good job of playing just a supercilious bitch. I mean,
Oh,
you
she
just
excels
You
at it.
hate her.
she's
You hate her.
really, really good at making you dislike her.
Within 30 seconds of her being on that computer call, you're just
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like,
Just
oh,
shut
is
that
that your daughter
computer.
back there? Oh,
shut that
that's
computer
Cameron?
right now.
Yeah, stop paying attention.
But the second act, just I feel like they didn't do enough to kind of play up the
To build
odd
up the
elements.
dread. To build up the dread, kind of.
Yeah. I think that they do a good job of showing a lot of like the racist microaggressions, like the concierge ignoring Veronica when
Yes.
she goes to the counter, and the hostess at the restaurant trying to give them the worst table.
I mean, and yeah, and they do make reference to the fact that something's off with the hotel.
Right. And then
so
their
are
white
they
friend is like, oh, well, I thought the service has been fine.
Yeah, correct. They didn't even clean my room.
Cluelessly,
she's like,
right?
oh.
She says, "I thought it's been fine." I don't know what you're talking
But I
about.
like the interaction between the girls. They established Veronica as this power player.
Mhm.
You see the scene with her on TV. She's Oprah level audience out there just raving about anything that she opens or says about. So you see right up front that she's a powerful Black woman. With something to say.
And I think that long restaurant scene, I really liked the section where Gabourey Sidibe. Do you like that? I
Yeah.
pronounced that
Nice.
correctly.
Very good.
I liked the fact that when her admirer comes over, and
Mhm.
what was the drink that he bought her?
Yeah, I
the
thought
thing
that was
was-
unnecessary.
I didn't think it was unnecessary because it was her taking that power, saying that you should have a little bit more perception. Look at what we're drinking. That we are power players here. You've got to do a little bit more to impress me.
Mhm.
And
But then she gave him his number anyways.
That was an empowered scene right in the middle of this movie where it needed it. It's not just browbeating for the entire hour and a half. I think that was necessary for me to see. It was a little bit of relief in the oppression.
I thought it was, again, this whole movie's cringeworthy. The way people are treating each other and the way that she cut that guy down. He was trying to be a nice guy, but you did see in the background, you saw his face, but when he was at the table, they never cut to his face. You only saw him at like neck level down.
He could have been a serial rapist who was trying to be a nice guy. You should always be suspicious of a stranger coming up to you.
I'll tell you, Jeff, that I've never accepted a drink from a stranger, and that's just a safety issue.
Ever? I've
Nope.
never offered a drink to a stranger. No one's ever bought me a drink either.
Aww.
Aw. So there we go. Maybe I just felt left out.
I think he deserved that tongue lashing. Get back down. Don't talk to me.
He was like a whimpering pup by the time he left. He was like probably tail between his legs, peeing his pants.
But it just doesn't, it just feels to me like it just doesn't, that middle section doesn't quite click in with the beginning and the end of the movie.
No, because you know what this immediately, the minute she's abducted in the car,
Right.
and the girl's in charge and you see who takes
Yeah.
her out, you're like, it's the hunt.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what this is.
Right.
You're replacing deplorables and elitists with white supremacist ass hats, and that's
Right.
what this is. To me, like you said, the second act makes the first half a little less believable.
Well, I mean, and there's, like Jim said, you're sort of waiting for this shoe to drop because there's so many things that are off. Like in the
And there's a scene where they're all picking cotton, and you hear what appears to be a plane or a truck or something going by, and they all kind of stop and turn their head to the and he's like, got awful quiet over here. Don't pay attention. Get back to work.
They're burning the cotton. So
I was just gonna say, they're burning it.
They're just picking it. Yeah,
They're picking it for no reason.
no reason.
Yeah.
They're not using it. They're
Yeah.
just burning it. And I thought when I first saw that, okay, they're burning it because they know that the North is coming in and they don't want them to use their cotton. But like, well, why?
And just burn the fields.
Yeah.
Well, why force these people to even pick it? And the white people did absolutely nothing but sit around and watch the black people work and then abuse them.
Right, and the sort of main antagonist, the guy with the
twirly mustache.
twirly
Yeah.
mustache,
Dick Dastardly.
he calls it a reformer plantation.
Yes.
Yeah. You get
Wherever
the
you
speech.
came from, forget about it. This is a different place.
Yeah, it's
Right.
basically rock and roll fantasy camp for white supremacists.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So when you see her get kidnapped and then you go, back to the plantation, So there is a kind of time travel element, is a time shifting element, right?
Yeah.
So actually the beginning of the film takes place before the
middle,
events of the
correct.
middle of the film.
Right.
And then you
Yes.
go back to the plantation. Then in that final act, she's obviously been biding her time because clearly at the beginning they had been trying to escape and something
Correct.
wrong.
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah.
And there's another character who comes in and she knows who Veronica is in real life.
Mhm,
And she's like,
right.
I know that you're the one who can get me out of here. And Veronica's like, you just need to be quiet and wait, like,
Yeah.
because these
And she
people
didn't
will
want to hear
kill
that.
you.
She did
Yeah.
not want to hear that.
And then she reveals that she's pregnant. This is the
Right. So,
Yeah.
so these people are abducting women and men, black women and men.
Mhm.
They are abusing them, they are raping them, and they are killing them.
prominent
Yes.
black women and men.
Right. And there's, I mean, that's one of the things where like the logic of the story starts to
Yes.
fall apart a little
Correct.
bit. Because if they're
Absolutely
so
falls
prominent,
apart.
there should be more of an outcry, like that these people are
Right.
disappearing. And
Not only that, if they all, so regardless, they all know that they don't belong there.
right.
They all know that they once had a life or abducted, and now they're being forced into this.
Well,
But
they can't
there's
reveal-
clearly more slaves than white people.
There could
Yes.
be an outcry because you know that Veronica's family is looking for her. You know that she's been on the news. But if they reveal that earlier, then it ruins the surprise that they're trying to achieve in
Yeah.
the story. So you hear that because it's based, the story is about Veronica. It's not about the others.
No,
but they could
it
be
does,
looking for
but
them
it
as
does
well.
lead larger to why aren't these other people making more of an effort? Why are they just giving in and being like, all right, I'm now stuck here?
Mhm. Well, now you know how I felt about Tenet last week.
Why?
This is the thing. There's a few things about this movie. Yes, the subject matter is incredibly important.
Yeah.
It wants to make a point. It achieves that, but I think it's more concerned with making a point than with making a great movie. It's very hard for me not to compare this to something like Get Out, where it makes the same point, but is also a great movie. Like, the storytelling, it comes first. Or something, even just something we watched recently, right? We watched The Five Bloods. Five
Right.
Bloods has a lot to say, but it also has a great story and it has great characters. And I feel like there's a few things about this movie. The white people are sort of very generic bad guys. There's no personal connection there. What I mean is something like, I thought of this afterwards, like Ralph Fiennes' character in Schindler's List. You get to know him, right? And you hate him. And one of the reasons why you hate him is because you know him, but you really don't get to know the monsters in this film. They're
But I
very
don't think I would
generic.
want to. I think that's speaking to the story needs to focus on Veronica and what background she comes from, what she does to make it important. And I think that these, because you do find out that the commander, the general that's got her specifically in his cabin is a senator. He calls one of the other soldiers calls him a senator.
And he's Jenna Malone's father. Her
Yes,
character.
correct. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because there's a scene where she gets branded with the BD.
And I think, as a matter of fact, I've seen all these people on my Facebook feed in the past couple of weeks.
You're right. It sets things up. It just doesn't pay off. It's not as biting as, like I said, I brought up, The Hunt, which actually had something to say, and it was a little. This, I think, sets it up, but there's no payoff.
I mean, it's very satisfying to watch her burn her rapist alive. I mean, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, drag the girl. The scene with the girl.
Because, it sets up that she's an equestrian, that she rides horses, because if you notice that the pictures when the camera's panning around.
And you see the hot yoga payoff when she's like she takes out Denton. The guy that was helping her gets killed, the axe through the chest. She does take out the other girl, but it's like there's 100 other people that are still trapped on this thing. It's like they're sneaking around, but it's like you just had massive fisticuffs with this guy. 3 people, and not a single person is alerted to what's going on, where they're not even allowed to talk to each other unless there's a white person present. Yeah. And all of a sudden you're making all this noise. His phone's going off. So then you get I don't know.
But if you don't like a movie, you tend to see these things more and pick them out. Like if you're kind of disappointed with it. I felt the same things about Invisible Man that you're saying now, because I thought that was completely implausible. But you guys,
we bought into it. We're like buying into it. But again, even it's like M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. You somehow have this magical town that exists outside of the realm They diverted planes. I mean, there were planes flying over. These people know for a fact that they're not in the past.
None of them is tricked into thinking that they've been sucked into a time warp.
No, and like I'm saying, it's that they're waiting for her to somehow liberate them, but it's like
it's kind of like that New Mutant setup where they don't know where they are. Like, oh, we're told that the nearest town is 20 miles away, but we have no way of knowing that. So they don't know where to run once they get off that.
And the same thing with the hunt, which is they're dumped off. Yeah,
and then they've got men with guns chasing them. So how far can they get?
And they are killing them. So yeah, I guess in that regard.
The thing that's horrifying is that like you see that shed sort of smoking almost continuously. So it's like, and what they're doing is burning the evidence of their murders,
which is crazy. It's one thing if you're going to go, well, again, the hunt, you're killing people, you're shooting them for sport. This one, you're just beating them. At the end of this whole thing is like set up inside of
a recreation
Civil War,
of a Civil War
reenactment zone.
And that end sequence when she's riding away on the horse and she just looks so fierce and she's carrying the axe and she's wearing the Union thing.
The sun's coming up.
Yeah, like it's gorgeous. And I did cry at the end just because she had saved herself. But I just felt in the end, I didn't feel as satisfied as I wanted to feel.
Correct.
By this movie.
Yeah, she takes out 2 people. Although the Robert E. Lee statue taking out that girl was very poetic.
Oh yeah, when she drags Jenna Malone behind.
Yeah, that's what I said. That to me was more cathartic than her burning the idiot.
But that was great. That was the final. That Jenna Malone was like the big boss, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, she was more. Yeah, because you saw her more as a threat.
She in a passive aggressive way threatened the daughter during that.
Oh gosh, that's horrifying.
Yeah,
she was like, "Oh, she'll make a perfect playmate for my daughter."
Yeah.
Like,
and you saw that play out when they brought in the slaves, and the little girls are naming the kids, they're naming the people.
And when she's in the hotel room, not only is she leaving her DNA around, but she's like dismissively flinging her papers around, and just the whole thing with the girl, like saying that was a red herring, the little girl in the elevator. She's got that time period dress on as well.
And the doll dragging around on the noose.
Was the carpet the same? Did it have the same pattern as the Shining carpet? No,
that was her outfit. Her outfit had the same pattern. That jumpsuit she was wearing when she went to the hotel, she tore that right out of the overlook. It was similar.
Doesn't make me want to go to Louisiana, I'll tell you that. Because even the 911, she's like, I can't hear you. You call back when you get a
phone. And what was that all about? They had the phone unlocked because she called 911, and yet somehow they needed his face to open it up again?
You can always use a phone to call 911. You do not need to unlock it to call emergency services.
I butt dialed 911 one day, and they called me back.
Right.
I didn't
know. Yes, you don't have to, like, if somebody finds you on the street and they don't have a phone and they take your phone out of your pocket, they can call 911 to get an ambulance.
Not the best operator she got on.
No, it's almost like they were all on the payroll. Like all the people in the hotel knew what was going on. It had its moments. Like you said, visually there were some really striking setups, but overall,
then when we didn't talk about the guy that delivers the flowers, the really weird.
The cotton flowers.
And you were thinking that there was something to do with that because this is before you didn't know that there was a time travel element. That coupled with her leaving her hair, you were thinking that some kind of ceremony was taking place to suck her back in time, which was not the case at all.
No, not at all. No time travel involved whatsoever.
And I confess that, because I feel led astray by the preview, that I was disappointed that there wasn't a time travel element, that I wanted it to be more supernatural, or that I wanted there to be like more horror elements in the second act. And like I said, it's very hard not to compare this to other things that have sort of done this well, like sort of had something to say but still stayed focused on the story. Actually, when I first saw the preview, both my husband and I thought that they were doing a version of Octavia Butler's Kindred. It's a very, very well-known novel about a modern-day African-American woman who sort of gets dropped back into the body of her slave ancestor. And it sort of happens irregularly. Like, she doesn't know when she's going to go back or when she might...
That's very inconvenient.
...to come forward again. And it's really, really fantastic, powerful book that I hope somebody does make into a film.
See, that would have been more interesting.
That's kind of what it seemed like it might
Nope.
be. So I recommend, if you want something, a similar sort of concept, but done, I think, a little better.
And actually has those fantasy elements.
And
to
actually
it.
has those elements.
Go read that book.
Please go read
Kindred.
Octavia Butler's Kindred. I also want to recommend a recent release.
The Ghost Tree?
Not the Ghost Tree. When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole, which was described by her publisher as Get Out meets Rear Window. I just read it about a week and a half ago, and it is so good. And again, sort of deals with a lot of these kind of systemic racism, obviously like things like the Black Lives Matter movement and like historical racism, but it also has a great story. And
And what's the name of the book again?
When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. But it's a thriller and it's fantastic, and I hope it's been optioned into a movie because it would make a great movie. Yeah, in the end, like this movie just didn't all come together for me.
No.
And I feel very, very sad about it because it might have been that I wanted so much from this movie. I think it just didn't have a great story. Ultimately, that's where it fell down for me. It's not so much the message. Like, I got the message and I got what they were trying to say. It was that the story, like they didn't hang it on a great story. And that was the problem for me.
See, I liked it a lot, and I'm thinking that this is just par for the course for a new movie. I'm not going to think the same guy.
You're just so happy to see something new.
But at least it's not all three of us saying yes or no. So
I mean,
I'll be the voice of dissent here. I liked it because it kind of gave me a release from looking at things, making a fist and just waving it at the sky whenever I accidentally go on my Facebook feed. I made light about this earlier, but it's nothing to be made light of. You see people like this.
Yes.
And people that you know that you don't want to know these things about and their feelings. And they take this social media platform that maybe should be just lighthearted and fun and, family pictures.
I
and
just had
things
this
like
exact
that.
same conversation with my eldest child.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so it kind of gave me a release that it exposes these thoughts and paints them for what they are. Hopefully not something that you would feel in the first place. And I think that seeing this portrayed this way was cathartic for me to get that viewpoint out there. And unfortunately, a lot of people are really, in terms of reviewers, are really coming down hard on Antebellum. If you've seen any of these...
I did not look at any of the reviews.
One of the first one I saw, Antebellum isn't just bad, it's vile, was the headline.
No.
Let's see, easily 2020's worst movie so far.
Oh, I don't know about that. That's pretty harsh. That's harsh.
These reviews are unnecessarily harsh. I think this works as a horror movie mainly because it's real. It's something that you see, these attitudes are something that you see every day.
Yes.
And that's scary. That's really, really scary. Almost the catchphrase of the character of Veronica is liberation over assimilation. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to assimilate her into something that is kept down and kept quiet. And she liberates herself at the end. And she comes through on her own philosophy. So that's why I liked it. That's why maybe my buckets will be higher.
That's fair.
I mean, I think maybe the headline is asking a question, which I did ask myself during the film, which is like, is there a line between unflinching and exploitative? So like, how much of what they're showing is them just being unflinching about the brutality, and how much of it is being exploitative? I mean, I think that's a valid question.
But you don't want to whitewash.
No,
something.
you don't. No, you don't. I agree. But I think that there is, again, like you could compare it to something like 12 Years a Slave, where it's unflinching, but it never feels like they're crossing that line.
Right.
So I'm glad it worked for you. Jim, it just didn't all quite click together for me. I wanted a better story to hang this on, because I do feel like it has a lot to say, and that the message is important. And in some ways, the message is more important than ever.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think that
agreed.
this is the perfect time for this to be out and for the biggest audience possible. So I'm glad it's on demand.
Yeah. But it just didn't quite all sync up in a way that felt like a great movie.
Yeah, it fell short.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a great movie, but I'll call it a good one.
Okay.
Definitely. So, okay.
Okay. Okay.
Now we're
I'm
ready
not
for
saying
buckets.
anything more now. Honest.
I'll go first. I'm going to give
Okay.
it 3.5.
That's pretty high for you. That's good.
Interesting, because you are a little stingy with the buckets generally. Yeah. I've really gone back and forth where to put this, because it's, like I said, it didn't all quite click together for me. But I just want to say that my queen, Janelle Monáe, was in fact still a queen, and I was always happy.
You are by her side the entire movie. You are rooting for this woman. Yeah, no.
And I thought she was fantastic, but like I said, the story doesn't all come together for me. So I'm gonna say like 2 3/4. Yeah, just didn't quite get there for me.
I'm 2.5, so a little bit lower. So make up your own mind.
Yeah.
You know, it does have its moments. There's certain times it's absolutely beautiful to look at.
And again,
the acting is superb.
It's not a Mulan level purchase. It's $19.99 on demand. So again, like as we often say, that is more than worth it if you're, even a couple.
I was gonna say this is not a family movie.
So we thought we were being so clever by pairing this up with a movie like Time After Time. Turns out we weren't. But that's
hold on.
Our own.
No, but there is a tie-in, because if you go, because of my headline from our Instagram page, both protagonists are writers. There's 2 time periods, whether it's time jump or not. So there's 2 movies, 2 authors, 2 time periods.
But let's go to the concession stand first, and then we'll be back with Time After Time.
Best popcorn in town is Manley's High Pop, in regular or jumbo cartons. Here's why. Take the tastiest, tenderest, scientifically grown popcorn, add pure, delicious seasoning and specially prepared salt. Then let the famous Manley machine work its magic on Manley popcorn, America's favorite popcorn. Crisp, savory, wonderful. Visit our concession stand now for Manley's High Pop. Show starts in 1 minute.
So, okay, we're back. Jeff, I know you mentioned this, and Christina, I don't know if you saw it a lot when you were younger, but this was a big, big HBO movie. This was released at the end of 1979. So I'm thinking probably at some point in late 1980 is when it
which is
premiered.
weird, because I had a hard time rectifying that, because most of my HBO exposure was earlier. But I have seen this movie numerous times.
Because they played it a lot.
So
they played it a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I was very familiar with this movie.
This is like, I was knowing the dialogue before they said it during this viewing, because I've seen it so many times.
Yeah.
So I had the opposite thing. So for some reason, this movie got crossed in my head with Murder by Decree, which has Christopher Plummer as Sherlock Holmes hunting Jack the Ripper.
Oh, really?
So, yes. So
were you disappointed?
So I was like...
So you thought it was a completely different movie.
Wow, yeah.
So I had this memory of like certain scenes, and I'm like... why am I not seeing any of those scenes in this movie? So then afterwards, I did a Google search for Jack the Ripper movies. So I was like, oh, I mixed this up with Murder by Decree. And my husband mixed it up with a David Hasselhoff movie.
What?
About time travel and Jack the Ripper. So
Hasselhoff is in a time travel movie with Jack the Ripper?
Yes, apparently Jack the Ripper's
Night Ripper?
blood gets on a bridge, and then because of that they move the bridge to somewhere in Arizona, and then he's brought back to life.
Sorry, you lost me at Hasselhoff.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which I didn't know anything about that movie either.
I don't know anything about that either.
Now wait a second. Has your husband ever seen this before? Once he started to watch this?
Once he started to watch it, he goes, "Oh, it's this movie." But but I actually don't remember watching this.
So this was your first time?
I think so.
Seeing this.
That's always fun. Mm-hmm.
So, time after time takes the basic setup. H.G. Wells in 1893 London, before he's written his major novels, a few years before, he's actually built a time machine in his basement.
Poppycock.
And he's having a dinner party with some of his illustrious friends.
They weren't friends. They were all jerks.
One of whom is Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, can we just say right now, Jack the Ripper was a real jerk.
Well, I think he'd have to be Jack the Ripper.
I mean,
I think that goes without saying.
I mean, just in general, prostitutes are pretty low-hanging fruit as it is. So, I don't know. Yeah.
But before the dinner party, you do see him.
You do see, yeah. And that is something I remember explicitly as a kid. That
because
scene.
He disembowels her.
And it's not, but it's not graphic at all. But there's a little blood
the
splatter
aftermath,
or whatever.
well, you see her holding her bowels in, as she's in the alley. But he shows up fresh from the kill to this dinner party. So much so that he's got all the bloody evidence in his doctor's bag. John Leslie Stevenson is his actual name, but his friends call him Jack, as he points out to the prostitute. As H.G., played by Malcolm McDowell. And it's interesting because Malcolm McDowell had just come off Caligula doing this movie.
That's a hell of a movie.
So he wanted something to cleanse his
palate. Got to cleanse a palate, huh?
As I think anybody that saw Caligula
that
same
movie
way.
Is so oofa. That was a college staple.
So anyway, he's parading about this dinner party, bragging that he's made a time machine, that he's going to go to the future. And his friends are all his friends. Again, Jeff said loosely that term. Until he actually shows them the time machine, and he says that it's run on sunlight. But then I thought, well, why is it in your basement?
Okay, right.
But then you see one of the camera angles is going through the sunroof in the basement. So
but I don't think Victoria, London has seen sun in 20 years.
No, not for 2 round trips at least.
Yeah.
But
that was a little.
But the police show up because they find the latest victim that you've just seen killed in the first scene of the movie. The police find the bag with the bloody evidence in it. And Jack the Ripper, John Leslie Stevenson, has run down to the basement, and he is going to test out this time machine first to get away from the police and certain capture. I don't know if the date was already set. Did they establish that he was going to 1979 before
No, I
Jack?
don't believe so. No.
I would think that rather than, or maybe he just hit the dial and randomly went somewhere.
He did show the fact where he was telling them that it travels 2 years a minute, but I don't remember him changing the dials to.
And of course, there's a MacGuffin there that is set up for the end of the movie. If you take this thing out, it's going to kill whoever's in.
So why even have it?
I know that's
why would you build? I mean, literally, it's a kill switch.
Like everybody, in every James Bond thing, they all have in their hideout a self-destruct button. Why even make a self-destruct button?
Whatever you do, don't open this cage. There's a man-eating lion in there. Yeah. It was why even build it so that it can be removed?
What did they call it? Vaporizing equalizer was the name of the thing. He pulls out.
So, but all of this takes place within the first 12 minutes.
Yeah. So this is the trailer of the movie, right? So this is the setup of what you're about to see for the next hour and a half. So Jack the Ripper escapes into the future to 1979, very appropriately, because that's when the movie comes out.
Yep.
The thing is that if you don't have the key, the time machine comes back to your starting point. And Jack the Ripper does not have the key. So that's a good plot device in order to get H.G. Wells also into 1979.
But we're already breaking time travel. Time machine, if you go back to the original time machine, it only travels in time. It doesn't travel in space. It doesn't go from one location to another. It doesn't go from London to San Francisco.
The time machine is already part of a display in a museum in San Francisco. So that's how he ends up in it, is that he... like you were saying, it doesn't travel.
So what happens if it was destroyed somewhere in between then? So if, say, 1979, his house burned down in 76, would he just die? Or would he just show up without a machine?
But it didn't, because they had it in 1979.
I understand.
It existed all the way through.
I'm giving you a hypothetical.
It could. It could very well.
The machine itself did not travel with him. Because it was already there in the future.
You're talking about time travel paradox.
Yes, I know.
This is what we were talking about last week.
And I don't think that this will stand up to scrutiny in any way, shape, or form. I think that they meant this to be a throwback to old Warner Brothers 50s, 60s movies, because at the time the WB logo was not used. Because you got those 2 cylinder shapes as the Warner Brothers logo
Right.
for a very long time. And you see that in the beginning, but then
You see
they give you the WB logo.
the big updated one. Or maybe that was just because it was re-released. Because it
I
was
don't think so.
re-released. Yeah, because we'll talk about it later. Some of his talk was dubbed over.
Really?
Yeah, one word in particular.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm surprised you don't know about this. But again, go back to the original 1960 time machine. The Time Machine. When he travels in time is so well done, where you see cities fall and rise, and you see the storefronts change or whatever. And this is just, it's gobbledygook. There's my word.
Mm-hmm.
It's just silly graphics with the spectrum color rainbows, which they used in Star Trek the next year, or the motion picture the same year, to ill effect. It does the special effects don't hold up whatsoever. But that's neither here nor there. He ends up in San Francisco, and now he's chasing Jack the Ripper, who was loose in 1979.
Well,
And they were both smart enough to take money.
Yeah. I mean, except that he's not really chasing him. Like, there's sort of one exciting scene when he goes to the hotel room. But, you know, Jim, you were talking about MacGuffin. The Jack the Ripper element is almost a MacGuffin because he spends so much time on the romance, or just like, how many shots do we need of bank fronts in San Francisco?
That was excessive. He did have to go to quite a few banks before he found.
You know what I remember from being a kid watching this movie is that cover of one of the newspapers where he sees the naked girl on the cover of the newspaper.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And I thought that was so naughty when I was a kid.
Literally.
I shouldn't be watching this. I shouldn't be watching.
No, more so than the lady walking around with plastic pants on?
Or no, the woman in the street lamp that was dancing.
Oh, that's true.
That's a very bizarre visual in itself.
So you just mentioned as a kid. Did you pick up on the kid when he first appears?
Yeah, it's Corey Feldman.
It's Corey Feldman. You see his face, you recognize the voice instantly.
But you hear the voice first, and you know, even before you see
We
him.
actually rewound. I said, that's Corey Feldman.
I said the same thing. And then my guys here were like, what? And then, like, you know, we got to the end, and he wasn't in the credits.
He was. I saw his name in the credits. He was.
Okay, because they were like, he's not in the credits. I looked it up on IMDb to confirm.
Was his first screen.
We get a cavalcade of banks. We get a scene where Malcolm McDowell is going to every bank in San Francisco, and you see him going in, going out, going in, going out, going in, going out. And he finally sees, what was it, the Bank of England? The Charter Bank of England.
Yeah, something like that. Aha! The lights go off.
And he meets Mary Steenburgen, who is the spitting image of Kate Bush in this movie. I kept thinking Kate Bush every time she came on screen. And yes, Jack the Ripper stopped in her bank, and she remembers him, and he had a money belt, and he's been exchanging money. Now, apparently, Jack the Ripper has only been in San Francisco for a matter of hours, or maybe a day at the most.
Well, so here's the other thing, too, which is when H.G. Wells jumped into the machine, did he change it? Did he change the time 10 minutes so that he didn't show up the exact same minute that Jack the Ripper did?
But the thing is that Jack the Ripper is so well assimilated by the time that HG catches up with him.
Yeah.
He's already got like clothes. He's changing.
And time period clothes too. He's got clothes. He looks like he just.
And then he reveals he's like, you know, sit down on the bed. I'm like, do you know how many germs are on that hotel cover? First of all, you wouldn't be sitting on that if you knew. So he turns on the TV and he's like, look at all this atrocity. He's like, this is where I belong. And this is where the amateur line comes out. I'm an amateur.
And he's not wrong.
and then Malcolm McDowell, and this is probably why he took this role after Caligula, because it's so milquetoast. He's like, as a gentleman. It's like he makes a citizen's arrest in the hotel.
Yeah. But the music the opening music in the title is over the top as it is, but this chase scene is so well done because of the music.
Running away from him? He can easily overpower him.
Well, he's immediately scared by the maid who comes in.
Like Christina said, they're not chasing Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper is chasing them for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, because he's the one in charge. He's the one in control.
There's so many things that are weird. I mean, I know you're just supposed to accept. This is what I talk about sometimes when my fact-checking brain starts going.
Yeah,
like when
he full throttle in this one, huh?
When he goes into the bank, when Jack goes into the bank to exchange money, and he puts all these gold coins down, and he says, "I want to exchange some guineas." Okay, well, a guinea had not even been minted in Britain since 1813. So she should have been like, whoa, these are
Wow.
some historical coins here, not just been like, let me get you the correct exchange rate, sir.
Well,
No.
but H.G. Wells couldn't even trade in his jewelry without ID, and yet somehow they're both able to
Do it at the bank.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
At some back alley pawn shop, the guy needs
Yeah.
ID, but they don't need that at the bank.
Yeah, and I will tell you, there's that scene where he comes out and he's a fish out of water, and it's a nice little 5-minute montage of him just marveling at what he refers to as utopia. But if he didn't spend all of his money on McDonald's and liquor, he probably could have got a hotel room.
Yeah.
And this is
That's the scene that I remember the most as a kid.
where Big Mac, which was 95 cents, by the way, they're now $3.99. The average price of a Big Mac is $3.99.
But as a kid, I thought that was the funniest thing, that he mimicked the guy
In front of him. Yeah.
I laughed out loud every time I saw that.
Did you laugh out loud this time?
No.
Except that,
I didn't.
he ordered tea instead of a.
Yes, correct. Oh, and tea.
Yeah, he's like, I'll take a Big Mac, fries, and tea, please.
And tea. Yeah, and you get to little. So that's where I was talking about where I guess McDonald's had an issue with later in the movie when he's having dinner with her in the rotating restaurant. And he says, oh, this is better than the food I ate at that Scottish place. She's like, Scottish place? And he says McDonald's. And they went and they redubbed it and they named it McDougal's.
Really?
But I'm like, why would you? Apparently McDonald's had issues with it, but you clearly showed the McDonald's arches and your staff serving him. Then it said McDonald's. So why was that not removed and just this one word being redubbed? It made no sense to me. But that was in subsequent re-releases.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Let's
the
go to
original
Burger King.
theatrical.
That's all.
Let's go to
Let's
Burger
Burger
King. That's right.
Yeah. Now, wasn't McDougal's what they called the restaurant?
Yeah, that
Coming
was
to
John
America?
Amos Coming to America.
No. That was McDowell's.
Oh,
McDowell's.
damn it. I even made a John Amos joke.
Oh.
Nothing.
So I don't know if you guys know
No.
of the Wiener Circle, which is a famous hot dog place in Chicago where they basically abuse you when you go to order a hot dog.
That sounds like fun.
It's part of their shtick. They're
Berate me?
Yeah, but it's funny. But they dress up their restaurant every year for Halloween, and one year they dressed it up as McDowell's.
Nice.
And it's funny because they're actually across the street from a McDonald's.
Jack the Ripper comes back to exchange his second pile of gold coins, and Mary Steenburgen's character recognizes that this is the guy that H.G. Wells is looking for. It's come back a second time, and he realizes that she's the one that alerted him to the hotel that she recommended. So now she is in danger, and it's intimated that he knows where she lives. He looks at her name, and that she's going to be one of his next victims.
And he finds her in the phone book. Well, meanwhile, she's having some very titillating flirtation with Mr. Wells, who is like a puppy dog. He doesn't know what the hell's going on.
Now, talk about a little bit of the implausibility bleeding into this. Not even related to time travel. He hasn't showered in a couple of days.
No, that wool suit's got to be a little smelly by now.
Hasn't brushed his teeth, hasn't showered, slept on a bench at one point.
Oh, that's right. He brushed his teeth after they have sex.
Yes.
You're right.
Mm-hmm.
They really kiss like that in Victorian times? I don't think so.
They should have parted, and then she would have had his mustache on. That's how it should have ended.
Or the fact that she actually was attracted to him. I guess she liked the Victorian nerd type.
It's got, they do have a meet cute.
Sort of. I mean,
she could be Jack the Ripper. Like, she really kind of throws herself at him.
But then she's like, I'm going to lunch, and then she doesn't come back. Like, she takes him to the redwood forest, and
it was a long lunch hour.
They go to a movie, and
And then she was talking about how driving she was with her career, and I'm like, your career as a foreign money changer, it's like that. So, and they went to the movies.
Yeah.
Exorcist 4.
Now this
really
was
a thing?
This was
really
bizarre. No, but
okay,
they're watching the movie, and it sounds like a war movie.
Yes, correct, right. And then they walk out,
and he's hiding under the seat. It would make more sense if there was like horror sounds going on, and then he was hiding behind the seat.
Yeah,
that would have been funnier.
That was
I think.
Weird. Oh man!
And then she walks him through that same the Palace of Fine Arts, I think was the name of it. That she says it's made of plaster, and it looks like an old Roman, Grecian marble with columns and everything else that was created for, what did she say it was created for?
Something like a World's Fair type of
World's
thing.
Fair.
Something
And I think that's the same backdrop in one of the scenes in The Rock, the Nicolas Cage, Sean Connery movie.
San Francisco, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Well, I saw the Full House behind them at one
You
point.
did?
Yeah, it's on that big lawn stretch.
With a young Uncle Jesse walking
Yes.
the streets?
Uncle Jesse? Yeah, he was taking Aunt, what was her name? Aunt Becky to jail.
So now Jack the Ripper is after them. HG finally breaks down and he tells Amy the truth, that he is from the past and that he's traveled to the future and he's chasing Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, and meanwhile, 10 minutes earlier, she says, anything you can tell me, I'll believe you. And then he tells her, and she's like, you're an idiot. I'm out of here. So you're not believing him.
So now here's where they really play fast and loose. In order to get her to believe him, he brings her to the museum. And it is a funny scene. I laughed this time because I never caught it, where he stands in front of his picture and he makes the same expression.
The same face, yeah. All right, I kind of see a resemblance, she says.
And then they get into the time machine and he takes her 2 days into
3
the
days.
future. 3 days.
3
into the
days
future.
to like the 10th.
And so they get out and they're in the same museum. Nothing seems to have changed. And they're walking out and she sees a newspaper on the counter. And in that newspaper, she is revealed to be the 5th victim of the Ripper. And she starts freaking out. Now, the same newspaper is given to the police sergeant when
Right.
H.G. Wells is arrested. And he just dismisses it as anybody can make up a fake
Any
paper.
cheap dime guy can replicate this. And it's like,
But
what?
she doesn't question it at all. And so they go back, first of all. They're 3 days in the future. They go back to try to stop the 4th victim that hasn't happened yet. And it tries to suggest that you can't mess with time because
to get a flat tire.
They get a flat tire, then they don't make it there in time. That
Right.
the 4th victim.
And here's the tie-in. Here's the tie-in with our previous movie, which was, so you just told me before that on a cell phone 911 is free, and yet he needed a dime to call 911
Yeah.
payphone. That's
Yes.
all I got.
Yes.
That's a loose tie right there.
So now we're in crunch time because now there's a 4th victim and Amy is set to be the 5th victim. So what does he do?
Leaves
Rather
her.
than stay with her
He leaves
every
her.
minute of the day, because Jack knows where she lives, he leaves
Yeah,
her.
he left a note. You're like, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
No, I can take care of this. And then, but she doesn't help things by mixing sedatives with alcohol. You're setting yourself up as a victim. I'm sorry.
I don't know. There's just a lot. I really was wondering where this movie was going half the time. And like I said, like the whole idea of chasing Jack the Ripper, like no one's chasing him. There's like these very long scenes that don't seem to have anything to do with anything. And why would you go into a police department and you want to be taken seriously, like as a credible witness, and say that your name is Sherlock Holmes?
Because apparently he didn't know that Sherlock Holmes was famous. He was just like, it's a name in a book. We'll never know.
So he gets arrested. He goes to buy a gun, and then he gets arrested.
Yeah, I guess there's no 15-day trial period.
Or an
in
ID
Cal-
check.
in-
Or an ID check, because he doesn't have ID. And because
He can't cash in his jewels, but he can buy a gun. He
Yeah.
can purchase the firearm with no 15-day wait period.
So in that time, Amy's sleeping because she sedated herself. Then she wakes up, and then Jack the Ripper shows up.
Yeah, because she was supposed to check into a hotel.
Yes.
That was the game plan. Get out of your room, get out of your house, go to a hotel, check in, and that never happened.
Never happened. And so when the police finally arrive because even though HG is arrested and he pleads with them to go to her apartment, they finally relent, and they do, and they find a dismembered body and blood everywhere.
Yeah.
And the newspaper still thinks that it's great. They think that it's Amy that's been.
And I did like forget about that scene in the cop interrogation room. Like that was the scene that they played over and over again on HBO, like for the previews, the promos.
Right.
I'm H.G. Wells. I traveled back in the time machine. I'm chasing Jack the Ripper. You know, that's the sell point of the whole movie.
Right,
Like,
right.
and he's just, all right, I want the truth this time. And finally, he's like, fine, I did it. I killed them all.
And then but it is funny. Like, okay, I'm not Sherlock Holmes. I'm H.G.
Right.
Wells.
Right. I'm
Listen,
Topo Gigio.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's absurd for him to even use that because Sherlock Holmes was a famous character at that time. Like Sherlock Holmes was a
In
hugely
his time,
famous character. So
Maybe he didn't think that he translated over to the U.S.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, the tension does ratchet up here because now you like...
Especially during this scene when the police are like slowly.
Yeah, and he's watching the clock, and she's hiding. So she goes to leave with her bag, and the door starts opening. Now she's hiding in the closet, and you're like, well, she's not going to die. And then when all of a sudden you see like the dismembered body parts, you're like, he really killed her. I don't remember this at all. But
Neither
no,
did I.
that's a red
knew
herring.
It wasn't her. You
that
knew
was
it
a
wasn't
red
her.
herring. I didn't know it was her. He's got a time machine. He can do anything. Superman, listen, he flew backwards to rotate the earth to save Lois. So why can't
So
H.G. Wells?
because the police found this body, they know
In her apartment, right?
In her apartment where he said she was going to be. They know they don't keep him in custody.
Yep. Sorry about that. You're free to go. Sorry about your girlfriend, by the way. You were right.
But
Someone
maybe they
did
should
kill
have
her.
him committed. I don't know if they would just let him back out on the street.
Listen, on the plus side, he did have winning lottery ticket numbers for the next 3 days. He could have easily cashed in on that.
He could have.
But he didn't.
You'd think that would be the first thing, like on her
Right.
mind.
Go full Biff Tannen.
Right.
Yeah.
So that brings us into the end of the
end
movie,
game.
when it turns out that she is not dead, and that he's keeping her as collateral. He wants that key.
He still needs the key.
So he can get out and then not have the machine come back to where it was. So if he didn't have the key, then would the machine still be in the museum, or would it be gone?
It would come back.
And
He
then
could- he
HG would
could
be
have
able to
used it.
follow. Yeah.
He could use it, right? Because unless as soon as he got to point A, he changed the dial on where he went.
But if he had the key, then it would disappear from the museum. It
Apparently.
would not come back.
I don't
So,
know.
okay. And he wants, just out of spite, he says that he's going to trade Amy for the key, but then he takes Amy anyway. And he's most
Yeah, because
likely
again,
dead.
he says, oh, by the way, if you haven't noticed, if you haven't been paying attention, I'm not a nice guy.
Yeah.
He was like channeling that Javier Bardem look with the hair and
Now, David Warner was the go-to jerk in the 70s and early 80s because he came off this and did Time Bandits. He was evil
Oh, shit,
incarnate
that's
in
right.
Time Bandits.
You're right. You know what else was in vogue there in the 70s and 80s was a Hare Krishna joke.
Yes.
Because we get the Hare Krishnas, and I'm like, oh, they did the same thing in the Muppet movie, which came out the same year.
Yep. So this is where the vaporizing equalizer comes back into play.
But we didn't acknowledge. So it wasn't to be established that it wasn't Amy that was killed. It was her girlfriend Carol.
It was her girlfriend,
who
Carol.
she forgot had invited to come over to dinner. Nice. How'd that go?
I would have liked to have seen that scene. That confusion, hilarity ensuing as there's who's.
Are you Sarah Connor? Doesn't matter. I'm gonna kill you anyways.
The climactic scene takes place in the museum where HG manages to follow Jack the Ripper there, and he's still got Amy, and he gets into the time machine after she gets away from him. Does he know about the vaporizing equalizer at this point?
Yeah, because I think he established that everything was established up front when he was showing it to his quote unquote friends at the beginning of the movie. And this is the most important piece whatsoever here.
So what that does, if you pull that causes the person that's in the time machine to go through time without
a machine, apparently.
So did he go somewhere,
Who
or
knows?
is he just floating in the ether?
He went to Time Bandits. That's why he's evil incarnate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really climatic at all because he looks down and he's like, at the same time, he sees him grabbing the key and he just kind of like nods his head. All right, fine, do it. Yeah.
And that's that.
Yeah.
So then the end of the movie is Herbert trying to convince Amy to come back with him.
Well, he did earlier, and she said, I have no purpose back there. So he was going to leave without her. And at the last second, she jumps in. Herbert, I can't live without you. I love you. So.
Yeah, maybe she'll go back and write Wuthering Heights.
Well, she said that she was going to change her name to Susan B. Anthony, which I thought was a funny joke. So.
But regardless, she goes back. and that's the end of the movie. And you even get a little like a Animal House American Graffiti type script to tell you what happens to these characters after the movie.
Oh, I don't think I saw that.
You didn't see that?
I
Yeah, there's
did not see it.
like one screen saying that he
Oh,
married.
no,
That
I
he
think
married Amy, as if this actually happened. What you've seen is
did.
a true story.
He did. He married Mary Steenburgen. I had
He did.
no clue that they were married.
In real life, yes,
After
they
this
were.
movie.
For
Yeah.
10 years, they were
10
married.
years. Yep. And then I guess Ted Danson stole her away.
Ted Danson stepped in.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not a great movie, but I do have fond memories of it watching it as a kid.
This is one of those where you're definitely biased from seeing it as a kid. And you're trying to chase that dragon and get the feeling that you did. That giddy feeling that
There's no dragons on Christina's end.
Because whenever I watched this as a kid, like I was saying before, there was enough salacious things in here to a kid that makes you think you're watching something that you shouldn't be watching.
Yeah.
And it was a PG. They played it at all times of day.
The hooker scenes,
and that colors my opinion. There's
do.
no way to separate it. There's no way to separate it.
I agree. Yeah.
And there's no way for me to separate the fact that I thought I was going to watch a completely different movie.
That sucks. When you sit down, you're like, all right, I'm in for this movie. And you're like, this is not that movie. This is not that movie at all.
So yeah, I thought I was watching a completely different movie. There's a lot of disorientation.
It made $13 million. It was released in September of '79. So we're coming up on its anniversary. It was released the 28th of September. Directed by Nicholas Meyer, who directed the two best Star Trek
Let's
movies.
talk about that because there's a lot of Star Trek connections in this movie. One of them being that there was a deleted scene where Wells is on a bus and he's being harassed by a punk with a loud boombox, and it got cut, but it was reused in Star Trek: The Voyage Home.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, you're right. Myers wrote and directed. He either wrote or directed some of the best Star Trek movies. And going back to The Voyage Home, the end scene with there's a character that they befriend because of time travel. They go back in time to save the whales. They meet a character who falls in love with Kirk, named Jillian, and at the very last second, she jumps into the transporter beam, exactly the way that Mary Steenburgen jumps into the time machine at the end of this movie. And then you got Malcolm McDowell himself actually killed Captain Kirk in Star Trek Generations.
Yes,
as Sauron.
that's right. That's right.
Because Mary Steenburgen is in Back to the Future 3, and it's almost the same storyline. She loves, well, in that movie, she loves Jules Verne and H.G. Wells, but she falls in love with a time traveler.
Yeah, it's just reversed, right? And
Right,
actually,
correct.
I read something where that occurred to her while she was making Back to the Future 3, and I think that's why she was cast, is because they were looking to recapture that from Time After Time. She won the Saturn Award for Best Actress that year for Time After Time.
Huh. Okay.
And did you know there was a TV show based on this?
Yes, I did see that, and Myers was connected. I think he wrote one episode, maybe the pilot or something. I don't remember it, but I did. Well,
No.
did you all? Yeah.
Neither do I. 5 episodes aired. They made 12, but it never...
I think in the UK somewhere it was all released. Did you see that studio was pushing for Mick Jagger to play Jack the Ripper?
I did see that.
That would have been a different movie.
Yeah. He's not what was the big movie that he was in with Emilio Estevez? It was that sci-fi movie.
Yeah, I'm going to say no, I'm thinking Runaway, but that's not it. That was Tom Selleck.
Tom Selleck and Gene Simmons, right? Runaway?
Yes, yeah. The little robot bugs.
Yeah.
Is it Repo Man?
Not Repo. That was Emilio, but that wasn't Mick Jagger. It was like
Free Jack.
Free Jack. Yes.
Boom.
There you go.
No Google needed. Thank you. All right. Like you said, I can't help but be slightly colored by the fact that I've seen this numerous times, and I always enjoyed it as a kid.
And during that dinner scene, when they're talking about socialism and all these other current type events, I could have sworn I saw Bernie Sanders sitting there at the end. It's like, I didn't think he was that young.
I believe he did say poppycock. Who is the girl's face inside Jack the Ripper's stopwatch? Was that his mom? Was that the Queen of England? Who was that supposed to be?
I don't know.
We don't
Never
know.
says. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like one of those plot threads that maybe could have meant something, but doesn't. Just
Maybe
like
it doesn't.
goes
None
somewhere.
of it.
Yeah.
None of it means anything.
Maybe it's on the cutting room floor somewhere where that was explained.
I don't know.
I mean, I think they could have cut 20 minutes out of this movie easy, just to like pick up the pace a little bit.
Like the
bank
meandering
scene.
around her
Just-
kitchen, explaining to him what a Mickey Mouse phone was and her.
I mean,
ex-husband.
possibly they could have cut a few of the shots of bank fronts. I mean, I think you got the idea.
That's meanwhile. Just so you know, that's exactly when Steve comes back in Wonder Woman 84. They're just gonna do like a bank montage of him being amazed.
but Jeff, you brought this up in the Tenet episode, where with the time travel, couldn't they solve this by just going back in time to the moment before Jack the Ripper arrives, just get him on the jump as he gets out of the time?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you said earlier that, by trying for them to try and go back and save the fourth victim, it kind of sets up the fact that you can't change history.
Right.
So,
But they don't
somehow-
even try. Like, that seems like that would have been a more productive way to spend time in the story, to at least attempt to use this tool that they have.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which they only fleetingly do in
Mhm.
order for him to prove his story.
Yeah.
I have to tell you that denim vest looked very smart on David Warner, along with the bell bottoms.
Like I'm telling you, man, he was like rocking it.
You know what's funny? I just, I mentioned that Mary Steenburgen looks a lot like Kate Bush. As they're leaving The Exorcist 4, or she mentions the movie The Red Shoes, which is the name of a Kate Bush album years later. So
Mhm.
it's just a weird coincidence.
That's weird.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm going to give this, if we're ready for buckets,
Yeah, I think we are.
I'm going to also stick with my 3.5 from the
I
earlier.
have to match you 3.5 on this one. And
No
now
personal
comes the
connection.
hammer. Yeah, with the caveat that it's a
Yeah,
personal connection.
Like,
Yes.
I have no personal connection to this, and
Forever will.
I thought it was kind of slow, and I think like 2.
There you go. Yeah.
I don't need to watch it again.
Mm.
I'm gonna go back and watch Murder by Decree, which is
There you go.
Yeah.
movie I thought I was watching.
Is that a
Yes.
time travel? That's a time travel?
It's not time travel, but it was just, I think, because Sherlock
The
Holmes
Jack-
is in
yeah.
it, and there's a Jack the Ripper connection. And by the way, James Mason's in it too. He plays Watson. You guys should watch Murder by Decree.
Murder by Decree. We should watch it. Order by Decree.
And I have to say, in Amy's apartment, she's got that Life magazine cover with the fairy. Did you notice that? With the
the Conan Doyle fairy
Yes.
hoax, the famous hoax.
we had that poster growing up on my
Mhm.
wall, and not on my wall, but on our living room wall in the 70s.
I
So-
say Conan Doyle hoax. He did not perpetuate the hoax, but he was one of the people who verified the hoax. He was a believer. That's the funny
Huh.
thing about Doyle. He was a believer. He believed in all kinds
I'm
of
a
crazy stuff.
believer. Don't we all? Jim, did you also have the mushroom wallpaper?
No,
Did that mushroom wallpaper was just that screamed 70s. It was horrible.
the mushrooms taste like mushrooms. The
You're right.
snozberries taste like snozberries.
All right, we're out of here.
We're out of here.
Moving on.
Okay, so our confessional this week
Confessionals.
is seasonally based, literally.
Your favorite season, that just came to me because we're starting to get into my favorite season. So I love the cold weather. And one of the things I love about autumn is that everything dies and everybody goes inside. I do not need to see the sun like ever. I you know how people get like seasonal affective disorder and they're like depressed in the winter?
Yeah.
I'm the opposite in the
Yeah.
summer. Like when the sun is out and everyone's like smiling and saying it's so gorgeous.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Like, shut up. Shut
go
up.
inside.
Yeah, not everyone likes the sun, right?
No, I do not.
Are you
like the
getting
sun.
Are you getting the haze from the
Yeah,
the
we
California
did.
fires?
We did actually have a little bit of it.
It's been here for the last couple days.
But right now, it's starting to get down into like the 50s at night, and
Hmm.
I like to leave the windows open. I basically leave the windows open until like there's frost forming on the windowsills, and then my family says, okay, we have to shut the windows and like turn the
Nice.
heat on. I love the cold weather. I love overcast days. I love trees with no leaves on them. I love everything about like the fall and the winter. And I'm like so happy. I go outside. I go for like a long run in the morning. It's dark out when I leave, and like the sun's not even coming up until I come back. This is my time. This is my time, and I
Yeah.
love it when like the warm weather goes away. I just don't
Yeah.
understand.
I'll match you with that for
Oh,
all.
that's all of us then, because this is I've always referred to myself as a mushroom. I like a cold and damp.
And you know, I like that. It's a great pumpkin Charlie Brown. You cannot deny that in the fall, and pumpkin pie as well. Love
Yeah,
that.
it's like soup. It's like soup and sandwich weather,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Get a nice little stew going, some chicken and biscuits.
And
I
you know,
do
and
enjoy-
if you're in a part of the country where the leaves change, there's really
Well,
little.
that's the other thing
top
too. Is I
that.
love that musty leaf smell, that earthy smell.
Yes, and that's such a short window as well. Before they start to change, then they're gone. So you really should appreciate it while it's happening.
Yeah.
Stop, look around, take a
Look
walk.
at that.
around.
We're all in agreement on this one, huh? We're all
Yeah.
fall people. I
Yeah.
hate the summer. I am as white as sour cream. I can't go anywhere near the sun without SPF 3000, and I still get burned.
Yeah, there's not. I wouldn't say that there's any of the seasons I dislike per se, but fall definitely outshines the rest.
There you go.
I like the fall, but I really like the winter. Like I just really like it when it's cold. I don't feel like myself unless I'm wearing a sweater.
Oh, see, I don't wear so. I just like a cold.
Yeah.
If I can push the shorts at work until Thanksgiving, I am a happy man.
You see, I like that limbo phase where you don't have to use the air conditioner and you don't have to use the heat. So
There
for
you go.
about a month, I've got.
Yeah, well, as a homeowner,
Yeah.
you're very thrilled with that. Yeah, we've been mid 40s here at the last couple nights, so windows have been shut. Although there may be one or two still open in my bedroom.
Yeah, it's crazy. Last week it was sweltering in this room, and now I'm freezing. I have
And I think we're hitting 80 again by somewhere in the middle of the week. But
I'm so against that.
I know, you had your shot, summer. Go away. I like it
like
cold.
when-
I have
it's like
friends in
when-
Minnesota, and they're like, "Oh my god, now I'm jealous."
It's like when it gets cool and then it gets warm again, I get really hostile toward the warm
Right?
weather.
Yeah, it's like button pushing. It's like, come on, just give me a friggin' day.
You know what I don't like? I should say that I do not like the transition from winter to spring, because then everything's wet, it's dirty,
Sloppy.
the snow is melting, and
I just had to throw away my snowblower, so I need to get a new one. Yeah, work has ruined winter for me. I used to enjoy it. I used to love it. Now I despise it.
Oh, because you're always in and out of
It's
the
just the
truck
trucks
in the
you
snow.
can't. I don't mind walking it. Driving in it is a nightmare. These trucks can't handle. They can barely handle wet leaves. Whatever. So there you go. We're all fall people. We're all fall peepers. Peepers.
Yeah. So this is our time right now.
That's right. That's why we're the
It's our
happiest
sweet
we have
spot.
been.
Yeah.
This is the happiest you'll hear the three of us.
Yeah.
Wait till October hits and we talk horror. Well, I might not be quite so happy, but
You'll be okay.
I'm okay. I'm okay with what we have lined up.
But before we get there,
Yeah, we got one more week
as
in
Christina
September.
has said, this is really like a cleansing of the palate before we get into the deep down dirty
We went
horror
to the
season.
opposite end of the spectrum.
So it's almost like going from we're going to be going from H.G. Wells to Caligula. So it's going to be the opposite.
Oh my.
But no, next week we are covering a double of Phineas and Ferb. Now, hopefully our listeners are Phineas and Ferb fans. Now,
Phineas and
Jeff,
Ferb
you
fans. Say that three
are
times.
Are you a newbie to Phineas and Ferb?
I am pretty much a newbie. Yeah, I think they came on the scene right a little too late for my kids to be into them. So I have seen episodes. I know Doofenshmirtz, and I know the platypus.
Perry.
Perry the platypus.
Perry the platypus. But beyond that, I'm not too familiar with their antics, so I'm looking forward to it.
So, in a nutshell, Phineas and Ferb are stepbrothers, and
Yes.
their parents have, in very Brady Bunch style, have had these children with other partners, and then they've divorced or what have you, and they're married to each other. The mother is Phineas's mom.
Phineas and
And-
Candace's mom.
Phineas and Candace's mom, and
Right.
the dad is Ferb's father, and the
Mhm.
dad is English, which
Yes.
is interesting. Do they ever actually reveal how they met? I don't think they do.
No, actually, it's one of the things I like about the show. It's just that they're a blended family, and it's just sort of treated matter-of-factly, and I think that's a really nice thing. Considering how many people are a product of a blended family. I just
Yes,
think
yes.
It's nice that it's just sort of presented like this is this.
This
and,
is just right.
yeah. And,
Did Tiger ruin the wedding? Thank you, Brady Bunch reference.
So what they do is they get up to shenanigans, of course, every week. Ferb doesn't speak much. It's almost like Jay and Silent Bob.
Or Penn and Teller.
Penn and Teller, yes, a
Yes.
classic combo like that. Their specialty is inventing fantastic, huge skyscraper spaceships. They're geniuses, right? So they make up something every week, usually in their backyard. And Candace, the older sister, is forever trying to tell on them to their mother what they're up to.
Well, that's right. The opening, Mom.
Yep. So by the end of every episode, the mom is on her way home, and Candace thinks, I've got them. They've got this skyscraper in the backyard. Mom is going to finally see how they drive me crazy every week. And by the time mom gets there, the skyscraper's gone, or whatever they've invented is gone. And that's basically the setup of every single Phineas and Ferb.
Every episode is that?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's like Big Bird screaming at one.
Yeah.
Remember when Snuffleupagus was like invisible to everybody except for Big Bird? And
Yes.
every time,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it is like that.
There you go.
But that's actually after a while they use that as a plot device. There's one storyline in which Candace actually fixes a major problem because she knows if she goes and gets their mom, as soon as she tries to bring her mom out to see it, the thing will disappear because it happens every single time.
Gotcha.
So there's
I know
like
the minute I go.
she's like there's aliens invading something. There's like some major tragedy about to occur. I can't remember the exact story that it occurred in, but Candace goes to get Linda, and Linda's at a movie theater. She's like, "Mom, I just need you to come outside for 1 second." And she knows that as soon as Linda comes out, the problem will disappear because just
Right.
the approaching presence of Linda will make the thing go away.
And that's
So-
Candace is actually my favorite character from the show because
Mhm.
it never failed to make me laugh whenever she'd be like, Mom, 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 trying to get her mother to look in the backyard. And then by the time she does, whatever she wanted her to see is gone.
Actually, my son just came over because we've watched every single episode together, as well as the first film, Across the Second Dimension. He just came and told me that storyline is from the movie Across the Second Dimension.
There you go.
So,
We get aliens in this one too, right?
yes.
Yes.
I haven't watched it yet. So,
Well, I just pulled out the poster today because I'm pulling
Mhm.
together the Instagram page.
so what we're watching is Phineas and Ferb, Candace Against the Universe, which is
Alright.
the newest movie. Now, it's been several years since there's been any new Phineas and Ferb.
Oh, I
out.
didn't realize that.
Yeah, so this is the first time in quite a few years that we've got new Phineas and Ferb.
And it's all original cast members' voices.
I assume so.
Everybody except for Thomas Brody Sangster, who played Ferb.
Oh.
Ferb in the episodes usually only has one line of dialogue.
Well, I was gonna say Jim just said he doesn't speak much anyway, so I'm
but
coming
he
back
has
from.
he has a few more lines of dialogue in this one. But
Well, it is a movie, so
But yeah, I
Huh.
did notice that he was the only one who didn't return for whatever reason.
And along with Candace Against the Universe, we're going to be covering Phineas and Ferb Star Wars, which is another
Woohoo!
feature length. And it's basically A New Hope, but through the lens of the world of Phineas and Ferb. So they're trying to establish in this full-length animated cartoon that there's a subplot with the Phineas and Ferb characters going on simultaneously along with the plot of A New Hope. And it really is quite entertaining. So
Okay.
whether if you're a Phineas and Ferb fan or a Star Wars fan, I can't wait for you to see it, actually.
These are both available on Disney Plus.
Yes.
I assume so. I didn't check the Star Wars one, but I'm thinking
It is.
Okay, well, okay. Because I was gonna say I know for a fact that the Candace one is. Okay, cool. I'm in.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for listening.
Yes.
as
thank
always.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Continue sending emails. We enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Somehow incorporate some choices. Let us know how we're doing or not.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
All
Come
right,
back
thanks.
next week.
Bye.
Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIConfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.
Show!